Hey guys, I'm John Matson and welcome to today's training. Instead of a big introduction about how I played in the NFL, I'll save that for another time because I wanted to respect your time and keep this training to 20 minutes. As you can see on your screen, the title of today's training is the 3 steps for maximum performance on the high school football field. So let's get started. Who is this for? This is for all you parents out there who have a son who plays high school football, who has a deep desire to succeed on the football field. And finally, if your son is frustrated by the lack of playing time, the lack of attention from his coaches, or the lack of attention from college coaches, this training is definitely for you. In the next 20 minutes, I'm going to show you how you can completely stop worrying about your son's playing time once and for all. I'm going to show you what your son needs to do to dramatically increase his athletic ability so his high school football coach has no choice but to put him on the playing field. You're going to learn what your son needs to do if he has big dreams of playing football beyond high school and earning a college football scholarship. And you're going to learn why only 6% of high school football players play football after high school and why a huge percentage of my athletes earn the scholarships they've always dreamed of. And you're going to finally understand that the pain of limited playing time and the pain of living with a disappointed athlete and the damage to an athlete who has had his confidence completely ripped out of him by a coach can be eliminated completely. And my biggest promise to you is that you're going to learn my 3-step strategy to maximize your son's performance on the football field. And there's only one thing you need to know, and that's that there are 3 steps that your son must master if he is ever going to reach his goals on the football field, whether it be just to get on the field or to become an all-state player, or if he has great goals to earn a free education through the game of football. And I'm going to teach you those 3 steps today. But first, I'm going to tell you about who I am. Despite not having a single scholarship offer out of high school, I walked on 2 different times, once to Snow College and once to the University of Utah, and ultimately played football in the National Football League. I played football and won a Fiesta Bowl championship under one of the best football coaches in the history of college football, Coach Urban Meyer. And I reached my childhood dream of playing football in the National Football League for the Oakland Raiders and the Cleveland Browns. Over the past 6 years, I've owned a gym specializing in helping athletes reach their dreams of playing sports in college and have made that dream a reality for hundreds of athletes and families. I have one of the top certifications in the world for enhancing speed and explosiveness through proper strength and conditioning. And today I'm on a mission to help as many athletes make and reach their goals on the football field, in the classroom, and most importantly, as positive members in their communities. So let's get started. Here's where I'm going to teach you the 3 steps. Number 1, your son must look the part. Whether or not your son wants to see the playing field more or get recruited by college coaches, size, or the quote eye test will be the first judgment for or against your son. I didn't get recruited because I look like this. You can see my picture on the right hand of your screen. At one point in high school, I was 6'4" and 170 pounds soaking wet. I was so scrawny and weak that there wasn't a chance in hell that I would ever get a scholarship. In fact, as one of the weakest kids in the football weight training class, I decided to give up on football completely because I thought I was too small. I didn't play a single down of high school football. I know it sounds crazy, but if you want the whole version of the story, just ask me someday. Parents call me to complain about their coaches not playing their son year after year. And this season, I've already had multiple phone calls with the same exact dialogue. And I have to be honest with you. 95% of the time I see their athlete for the first time, and I know right away exactly what the coach was thinking. Your son simply does not have the size to be a force on the football field. You have to understand this. If you choose to ignore this core concept, it doesn't matter how talented your child is. If he doesn't do anything to change the fact that he weighs 160 pounds, he will continue to be overlooked year after year. If you can grasp this concept and you can help your athlete become the athlete who looks like he belongs, your son's whole high school career will drastically change, and it will also open doors in the recruiting world if that is his dream. The great news about this is that college football players have heights that range from 5'7" to 6'7". And while height is not a trainable quality and is the only athletic quality that is not trainable, weight and adding explosive muscle definitely is. In addition, you have to understand that if your son wants to play football beyond high school, he must fit the size profile of college athletes. Your son cannot play tight end if he's only 5'9" and he doesn't have a chance to grow anymore. I would strongly advise him to play a position that is correlated to his height if college football is a goal. Hopefully, we're crystal clear on that. A couple years ago, I had the opportunity to coach Ben Bywater, who's just now going into his senior year of high school. As a sophomore, Ben was 6 feet tall or so and weighed about 160 pounds. To say that he was scrawny and weak would be a complete understatement, and he'd be the first person to tell you that. Looking the way he did, it didn't matter how talented or not talented he was. There wasn't a chance that he was going to get looked at if he didn't transform his body into a recruitable one. Like many of your sons, Ben had a tremendous desire to get better, and his ultimate goal was to play football at his dream school, BYU. And after putting in almost 2 years of work, Ben transformed into an athlete who finally looked the part. Going into his senior year, he is just over 6'2" and weighs over 210 pounds. And he has full ride scholarship offers from 4 or 5 different schools, including his dream school, BYU. In fact, he just verbally committed a couple months ago. All of this took place before his senior year even started. You can see Ben on the right of this screen hanging out with the BYU football coaches. The total cost of attendance at BYU for an in-state student is $17,818 per year. After 4 years of school, Ben's scholarship is worth $71,272 according to collegetuition.startclass. It will always start with size. And although we cannot train to make anybody taller, athletes can most definitely train to get bigger and stronger. This has to be the most important thing your son can do to make sure that he has never overlooked again. Step number 2, your son must get faster. Speed kills. You've heard this saying, and it couldn't be more true than in the world of high school and college football. If a player can't run, they simply cannot play. After an athlete's size profile, the single biggest factor in determining whether or not your son will enjoy success on the football field is whether or not he can run. It is no secret to you that speed is essential to your son's chances of dominating high school ball and playing football at the next level. What you might not understand, though, is that speed is a trainable athletic quality that most definitely can be enhanced. Most parents understand the need for speed. They just don't know where to get it because of gimmicky marketing and fraudulent speed trainers out there. The problem is that there are very few coaches amongst the slew of coaches who claim to be speed trainers that actually understand how to exactly make an athlete faster. I continuously see athletes wasting their time with speed ladders, running with parachutes, endless cone drills, and other BS that not only isn't working, it's wasting their precious time that your son actually has to make a difference in his speed performance. So I'm going to teach you 5 ways that your son can increase his speed right now. Number 1, he can increase his absolute strength. How can he do that? He can improve his 1 to 3 rep maxes on squats, deadlifts, and bench presses with perfect form. It's not enough just to increase maxes in the high school weight training class when form is overlooked. It has to be perfect, and this has to be an area of emphasis, increasing absolute strength in lifts like the deadlift, squat, and bench press. Number 2, your son must increase his relative strength. His relative strength, unlike absolute strength, is the strength to body weight ratio. His body composition has everything to do with this. A well-balanced training program combined with a perfect nutritional strategy will go a long ways in making this happen. Less body fat equals faster athlete 99.9% of the time. So it's not enough just to get stronger if your athlete isn't losing body fat and gaining lean muscle at the same time. After both of those 2 areas are addressed, your athlete must increase his power and explosiveness, which is actually his ability to generate force through the ground. In order to do that, your athlete must increase his absolute strength, he must increase his relative strength, and then he must use other training protocols like plyometrics and Olympic lifts in the right sets and reps format with the proper amount of rest to increase his power so that he can be that more explosive athlete. If you go out of order here, let me be clear. If you go out of order here and you try to increase power by doing some of the power lifts, by doing some of the Olympic lifts first without any solid base of strength, it's going to take you a lot longer to get the results that you want. Number 4, your athlete must sprint more often. It sounds silly, but a lot of times athletes are doing speed work and they're doing it in a state where they're doing conditioning as well. So a lot of coaches out there have their athletes running wind sprints and they're doing it on less than optimal recovery time. And that is not training speed. Athletes who train speed must go out there and sprint the desired length or the desired amount of yards as the coach wants them to. And then they must get the proper rest intervals to where they're always sprinting at a maximum intensity, 97% of their fastest possible sprint or more each and every time. Otherwise, they're conditioning and they're not doing anything to increase their speed. They might be getting better conditioned, but they're not getting faster. And lastly, after all these things and in combination with all these things, they must strive to always improve their technique. Stride length and stride frequency, arm swings, and every other technique as far as sprinting is concerned should be worked on all the time. So if your athlete does all those 5 things, he works on increasing his absolute strength, he works on increasing his relative strength, his body composition, and then he sprinkles in correct power training, and then he sprints more often, 2 to 3 times a week, and he's always paying attention to improving his technique, he's most definitely going to get faster. On the contrary, here's 5 ways not to increase speed, and these are things I see all the time. Number 1, have your son waste all of his time using gimmicky equipment like speed ladders, bands, and parachutes. Not one person on this training today should ever watch their athlete run with a parachute. Plain and simple, period. Number 2, wasting their time doing endless and crazy cone drills. Some cone drills and agility drills have their place. Most don't. I see athletes all the time doing crazy cone drills on Instagram and YouTube and Facebook, and they're wasting all of their time doing these things. What they're doing is getting good at those specific drills. They're not increasing their capabilities of speed and athleticism. So please don't do that. Number 3, putting time into the weight room without correct programming. It's not as simple as just lifting weights. Sets, reps, exercise order, exercise selection, correct form, flexibility, mobility. Those are things that all go into a well thought out program. And those are things that I don't think kids fully understand. So if your kid wants to get faster, make sure he's putting his time in the right places and doing the right things. Number 4, poor nutritional habits. Okay, bad body composition. This is huge when it comes to sprinting. On the last slide, we talked about body composition. On this slide, we're going to talk about nutrition for a second. If your athlete's training and not changing his nutritional habits and his body fat is 20%, and let's just take 2 athletes and make them examples. Athlete number 1 is 6'2", and he weighs 215 pounds, and he has 20% body fat. Athlete number 2 is 6'2", 215 pounds, and he has 10% body fat. I guarantee you, without a doubt, 99.99% of the time, the 10% body fat athlete is going to be faster than the 20% body fat athlete. And that all comes down to training with the right programming and having a great nutritional plan in place. And finally, poor technique. Stride length frequency again shows up. Athletes that don't pay attention to the technical issues, they're not doing themselves any favors. So hopefully you got some value out of that. Hopefully you took some notes and you have some ideas on how to move forward. A perfect example of all of this is an athlete I worked with since he was a sophomore in high school. Cody was playing receiver and safety at the time and weighed around 170 pounds. His problem was that he wasn't fast enough to play those positions at a Division I school, but he would be extremely fast at linebacker. Going into his senior year, he was frustrated by the lack of interest from schools. So I put a plan in place to work on his speed, strength, and size to show colleges at certain camps that he could be an explosive linebacker. We pumped 45 pounds of muscle onto him, and he was 6'2", 215 pounds when he attended the University of Utah Elite Football Camp. When they tested his 40 time, he was fast enough to play linebacker, and they saw that he fit the size profile too. They offered him a full ride scholarship on the spot. Right now, he's a true sophomore as we speak, and is one of the starting linebackers. The University of Utah cost of attendance for a resident is $22,328. After 4 years, the education would have cost $89,312. You can see Cody on the right there, a before and after picture, when he first started working out at 170 pounds, and then as a senior, 215 pounds. He completely changed his future through nutrition, speed training, and strength training. And the last step in maximizing performance on the football field is ignition. Whether you think you can or think you can't, you're right. It's one of my favorite quotes by Henry Ford. Over the past 6 years of training athletes in my gym in Salt Lake City, I have helped hundreds of athletes reach their dreams. When I started, it was my goal to help them get what they desired most. I knew that environment was important, but I didn't quite know how important. In one of my favorite books, The Talent Code, Daniel Coyle writes, this is important, listen to this, quote, "We are often taught that talent begins with genetic gifts, that the talented are effortlessly able to perform feats that the rest of us just dream of. This is false. Talent begins with brief, powerful encounters that spark motivation by linking your identity to a high-performing person or group. This is called ignition, and it consists of a tiny, world-shifting thought lighting up your unconscious mind. I could be them." Yes, my training program is on the cutting edge. And yes, I know how to make athletes bigger, faster, and stronger every single time. But my biggest strength is the ignition that was just discussed. Our athletes are surrounded by other athletes all over the state, just like them, who are doing great things and have big dreams. It is normal for them to see collegiate and professional athletes working out in the same place. Greatness becomes ingrained in their subconscious. If your athlete is not in the right environment, around people who believe in him, and around mentors that can show him that his dreams are possible, he will never acquire the belief necessary to achieve his dreams. It will have never occurred to him that he was closer than he thought. It is a fact that when athletes are in the right environment and they learn to believe in themselves, anything is possible. This one secret could be the biggest difference in your child earning a scholarship or playing his last football game in high school. One of my favorite stories is about an athlete I got to work with right when I opened my gym 6 years ago. 99% of the time, a parent comes in for the first time to enroll their athlete. But Braden was by himself. He attended the same high school I attended. He was almost 10 years younger than me. Not many athletes go pro for my neighborhood, so he knew about me and read a story about me opening up my gym. My gym was a 35-minute drive from where Braden lived, and he didn't have a car. But there was a train that could pick him up a couple miles away from his house and drop him off about 7 to 8 miles from my gym. So he rode his bike to the train and then biked to my gym after he got off. And then he had to do the whole trip again after his workout was done. Braden was a wide receiver who had barely seen the field his senior year. He caught one pass and had 0 highlights. But somebody told him that I had never played high school football, which is true, but it's a long story that I'll save for another time, and that I had walked on to play at a small junior college called Snow. Braden connected with that story and told me he wanted to play for Snow as well. The problem was that Braden hadn't learned any of the secrets we previously discussed. He was 6'1", 145 pounds, and was one of the weakest seniors I'd ever worked with. But his desire burned so bright, I could feel it. I get chilled just thinking about how bad this kid wanted to prove he could do something that nobody else in the world thought he could do. Like Cody and Ben, Braden worked his ass off every single day and had to make that incredible journey just to get there. Many of the times after his workout, before deciding to bike back, he would lay on the grass physically ill from the workout. But day after day, he got stronger and better. Ultimately, I got Braden a tryout with 200 athletes at Snow College, a perennial top 5 junior college in the nation. Braden went down and was the only wide receiver selected, and just like me, walked on to play football. I couldn't have been more proud. But the story gets even better. Braden ended up receiving a scholarship to pay for his schooling, and after his sophomore year was finished, he received a full-ride scholarship at a Division II school where he got to live out his dream of playing college football, a dream that everybody else thought was impossible. Braden had his ignition lit because he found an association to me and my story that made him believe that he could do it too. This is my favorite example of this concept, but hundreds of athletes I've worked with have reached their goals because they are surrounded by other athletes who have already reached the college level. We create champions because our athletes are surrounded by champions. In the previous examples, you have seen how much money our athletes have saved on the cost of college attendance. But think for a brief moment about Braden's situation. How much would it have cost him to never chase his dreams with that kind of dedication and tenacity? He learned the most valuable lesson of all lessons, that if you believe in yourself, anything is possible. So today I promised you that I would show you how your son could how you could completely stop worrying about your son's playing time once and for all. I promised you that you would learn what your son needs to do to dramatically increase his athletic ability, so his high school coach has no choice but to put him on the field. I promised that I would show you what your son needs to do if he has big dreams of playing football beyond high school and earning a college football scholarship, and that you would learn why only 6% of high school football players play football after high school, and why a huge percentage of my athletes earn the scholarship they've always dreamed of. And that you would finally understand that the pain of limited playing time, the pain of living with a disappointed athlete, and the damage to an athlete who has had his confidence ripped out of him by a coach can be completely eliminated. So here's what you need to do to win. Number one, your son must pass the eye test first. He must become an athlete that stands out. Don't take this little example for granted. This is hugely important. Number two, it is a must to develop and train speed with purpose. No more gimmicks, no more marketing, just real life speed training. Super important if your athlete has a desire to perform his best on the high school football field and beyond. And number three, your athlete must ignite his unconscious by becoming the athlete he needs to become and surrounding himself with other champions. Confidence is king, and your athlete must always believe in himself. Learning and applying these 3 steps alone will put your son on the fast track to reaching his athletic dreams he's worked so hard for, and it will end the frustration of limited playing time and limited exposure from college coaches. And so now you have a choice. You hopped on this training for a reason. Football season is nearing the end or has just ended, and you watched it for a reason because you want your son to be able to have the tools necessary for him to have maximum performance on the football field. And hopefully you got a lot of value out of this training. Hopefully you understand what your son needs to do now if he wants to increase his speed and have some ideas about, what to do as far as nutrition and everything else is concerned. So you can either stay stuck and do what your son's always done, or you can have my help. I have set aside some time to talk to you about how you can apply these ideas to your personal situation with regards to your son's football future starting today. I have to warn you though, this is not for everybody. You as a parent have to be 100% committed to doing everything in your power to help support your athlete in his athletic journey. But you cannot want it more than your child wants it for himself. Your son must have incredible desire, commitment, and tenacity for me to even consider working with him. My program is not for football players who are just happy to wear the jersey on Friday nights. It is only for the ones who refuse to let their athletic dreams go without a fight. And it has nothing to do with ability. It has everything to do with desire and determination. I'm doing this because I know exactly what your son needs to do to reach the next level and the exact steps you should take to support his vision. We will figure out precisely where your son is currently at and what is absolutely necessary for him to do if he wishes to play football in college or if he just wishes to get more playing time in high school. If you want me to coach your athlete and if you think it's a great fit, we may invite your son to become one of the new athletes we take on this month. And if that sounds like something you want to do, just click below this video to request an application. And if you submit that application, I'm prepared to give you a free assessment for your son and let him check out the gym and check out the facility and check out me as a coach. And if it's something that you want to move forward on, then we can go from there. But click below, request your application for your free assessment and free training session, and we'll see you soon.